this and I want to trace it. So that's the image. Usually when you bring an image, remember, when you bring an image plane, it sticks over the grid. See? So you want to go and make sure you move it back. So it's better if we... So this is my side view. And you will know when that happens, because if you move it, it will go either in front or behind the grid. So now it's behind the grid. Even though I'm not going to use the grid for this, I'm just going to lock that image in a layer and add select objects. So now it's locked, and I'm not gonna scale the image. I'm just gonna leave it like that. And I could also make it actually a little bit transparent. So I'm just gonna make it a little bit dimmer so it's not too bright. And then I'm gonna go back to Control A, back to the channel box, and lock the layer. So that image is locked in there. And I'm gonna turn off the grid. So now I have a couple of options. I mean, I could use polygons and trace it. There are many options to trace this, but I would use like the curve tools. So the CV curve tool, and I'm gonna have the options. I'm gonna toggle between 1 and 3. Those are the ones I use mostly, and sometimes I use the Bezier curve, like the Photoshop type of curve. So I could just use the... And I can also use the arc tool, because those are, if I want to make perfect arcs. So if you want to use the arc tool right now, so 2-point circular arc, so you can go here and here, and you can make that arc. So that I'm following the drawing, but the drawing is not accurate. But you know, I'm kind of creating this arc, so I can get started from here. Now, how can I offset that? So offsetting on a curve is in 2016, everything is in the modeling area. So I'm gonna just offset that from the curves. I think it's edit curves in 2015. If you go to the surfaces area, you know, if you switch to the surfaces here, and then you go edit curves. But here it's under curves. So I'm gonna offset the curve, and I'm gonna go to the settings. Now I do work with the Maya units here, so I need to remember what I mean. Each grid space is 1 unit, so that must be smaller than 1. So that means offset distance may be 0.5. Oh, the opposite way. Minus 0.5. Apply. So that's maybe minus 0.3. You can try some things here. You can try and see what. Apply. That's a little bit better. Maybe 0. I mean, that's fine. So see, I can make a series of arcs. You can do all that stuff with offsetting, just offsetting. So I'm gonna do one more. Let's do 35, just to be accurate. So select the curve, and so that's like minus 0.35 units. So I have this piece, and I could, you know, reuse that. But now if I want to go all the way to that, and maybe this is a little bit larger, so I'm going to use the arc tool again on 1 point, 2, and then you can do a perfect arc. Now the arc can be like a, you know, you can actually do a perfect arc, or you can push this back and make like a, you know, a little, you know, and this is a semicircle, this is more like an elliptical shape. But I'm going to do like just a perfect circle here. And I have my custom shelf. So I'm going to do the same thing. This guy needs to be minus 0.35 as well. So now I can actually connect these together. So I'm going to go ahead and use the curve tool, the CV curve tool, linear, and go hold on the C, and connect these together. Now if this is not straight, then I can do some work here, you know. So I can select these guys, I can group them, Control G. I can take the pivot point with the D and roll it up here. I can move this and snap it exactly on that height. So now they're on the same height. Now I can go and get my linear curve, hold on the C. Snapping tools are very important. Now this is perfectly lined up. I can also offset that 0.35. It's not working. Let's see, center pivot. Offset distance. Well, I don't know why this is not working, but I'm gonna not do that. So I'm gonna hold on this D, C, move this guy over here. Oh, it was all in there. It was offsetting wrong. Okay, so center the pivot point. I'm just going to duplicate it. D, C, roll the pivot point all the way to the start. Shift D, and just get that over here. Now I'm going to select this control vertex and move it all the way to the end. I'm going to select this one and grab the control vertex and move it also all the way to the end. Use another curve, C, to close these. These were not lined up, so let me just line them up. So I'm holding down the C. So I'm doing all this just for tracing. So now I have another type of curve here. I could use like, in this case, I could use the arc, or I can use just like a 3-degree curve. So I can start from a tangent. So if you want to start with a tangent, hold on the C and add 3 points, then start escaping that linear curve. So then I have that piece. I can actually go ahead, center the pivot point. Let's see if the offset works on this one. Set the settings. No, this is way too much. So 0.35. Apply. So that worked. It won't look the best. Usually it's like it's trying to do an approximation. I mean, you can always correct that. Now, how can we cut these curves together? How can I cut these? So select all the curves and go and say, actually I'm going to cut these first. I'm going to select these two guys and say cut. So this thing, I can cut it out. I do the same thing, curves, cut. And I can select that and cut it. So that actually, where they meet, I can cut them. And I can go and use another curve, a linear curve, to connect these together. So C, holding down the C key, and I connect these. So I'm not gonna finish this. I'm just showing you like a little bit of how I would trace. I mean, it's good to trace and trace with the arc tools and use tangents and use the linear and use like so then you can get a lot of shapes done. Now, how can we put this together? If we want to make a clean polygon shape, I'll use the loft tool. So that's the best thing we can do right now, and you could do that again for tracing anything. Only keep using the loft tool. and that's something that I'm using most of the time. So I can loft these two. So select one, select the second one, go to surfaces, go to the loft command, reset the settings. That's how the loft command looks in the beginning. That's for a surface. It usually wants you to make a NURBS object. We don't want to use a NURBS object, we're going to make a polygon object. So we're going to hit polygons, but then we don't want triangles, we want quads, and we want general. That's it. You click apply, it starts lofting. Now, when it lofts, it will loft either on one side or the other, so you might see this problem. So just go and say mesh tools, mesh display, reverse the surface direction. Let's see. So now it's reversed. So I'm going to also turn on the wireframe unshaded so I can see the, and then I always like center the pivot point. So this guy with this guy, surfaces loft. Now we get this thing, no problem. We can go to the tessellation and increase the U number. So maybe that much. Now I'm going to what is it? Reverse. Select that guy, and loft. So I keep doing lofts until I get the exact. So this one and this one, loft, tessellation U. So this one, always select 1 and 2. Okay, so now I have these. Now I'm going to reverse that shape. Now what I need to do is connect these all together. So the cool thing about the lofting is that you can do very intricate curves and loft in between. Like let's say I want to continue this shape. Okay, I want to go ahead. Now I have an idea. That's what I want you guys to do. Also, sometimes you know, you can actually continue certain details. So I made this. How can I loft that? How can I make this shape? Which would be kind of interesting. I'm going to isolate it, Alt H, and make a linear curve, and hold down the C, hold down the Shift, and kind of approximate where this shape should end. 1, 2, surfaces, loft. Look how easy this is. Now this is a clean shape except that part. Whenever they meet in a corner, you get triangles. Select the edge and just delete it. Now it's a quad. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this shape is clean too. Control Shift H to go back. So now I have all this. So select 1, 2, mesh, combine. Now I'm going to start putting together the mesh. Now this piece, there's a lot of curves behind it, so I'm going to go and say show for hide the NURBS curves from the display for a second. Select vertices, select them, and merge the components. Select these, merge components, select these, merge components. Now this is one piece. I don't want it to be associated with these down here, but I want these guys to connect. These all connect. And now this piece, I need to also merge wherever they connect. So you want to go and select the vertices, select them, and merge. Select, merge components. Select and merge components. So if you press 3, it should be fine. Now I have these shapes. Oh, actually this one is further back. So I'm going to separate them. So separate. Select this mesh, W, D, V, snap, move this, and snap it here, V. Combine, select the vertices, merge components. Sometimes they won't merge. You can do in sections, 1, 2, and 3. So the concept art that I gave you has a lot of curves, has a lot of intricate shapes, and you can use the loft command always. Now I can go back here and I can say maybe I can refine this area. Maybe I can just add a couple of edge loops. Let's say you wanted to you wanted to refine this area, and let's bring the curves back. Show NURBS curves. So let's say you wanted to make it more of a curved shape. Okay, let me just, I always want, if I want to get a mesh to resemble a curve, to trace it, I mean, I could do it with like adding a bunch of loops and do it, you know, with my, you know, sort of like a drawing, but I like to always use curves in the background so I can trace them. Now this is a linear curve. I'm going to abandon that. I'm going to double click and press 3. So hold down the C. Something like that. And I can still, you know, work on making it a little bit tighter here at the end. Something like that. And so what I want to do is, like, I'm using this curve just to trace the shape. So the shape doesn't have many subdivisions, so I would go to the mesh and add some subdivisions. One over here, you know, as many as I need so I can trace this. So I can go to get a vertex, W, and like slide it on the curve. See, sliding it on the curve will make it so kind of clean the topology here a little bit. So in this case, I was just like using a curve just for a guide. Okay, that's it. Now I'm going to extrude. So I'm going to select this piece and this piece, center the pivot points, select that one, extrude it. Select this one, extrude that one. So I'm getting these shapes. Now I want to start adding some some detail to that. Of course, some beveling. Alt H. So I can select all the border edge by double clicking it. No, we don't want that. Okay. Okay, so maybe this one. So I think I selected everything I need. I'm gonna go bevel. I can use like a fraction 0.3, couple of segments. So now I detailed that just as a bevel, so you can see that it's. I can press 3. It looks even nicer, but then I can actually, it's stretching a little bit, so I can use a couple of edge loops, one over here, so it will kind of crease it. So now that's kind of done. I'm going to stop the video here.